Hello, everyone. My name is Themi Babatskos. I'm a mechanical engineer and I'm with Mann Engineering. Glad for you all to join us today on our presentation on the living with the novel coronavirus and how to safely reopen shared areas in apartment buildings and how Mann Engineering can help you. I'm happy that I begin this opportunity to speak with you today regarding the coronavirus and HVAC systems in apartment buildings. But before I jump into it, I'd like to tell you about our team at Mann and how we want to work with you. While many other people around the world are picking up the pieces of what's left of our previous lives before the pandemic, the world has been dramatically shifted into a new state. Now, whether it's for better or for worse, our team at Mann believe in a strong future ahead and clean air solutions for your building. We've been granted the opportunity to grab Corona by the horns, and we want to tackle it to the ground, one apartment building at a time. We've come to provide you today with professional HVAC expertise on how to safely reopen common spaces in multi-resident buildings, while also mitigating the risk of coronavirus. We understand that it's a stressful and very odd time, and we know that people are struggling to figure out what to do next. And that's why we're here to speak with you today to help better understand what's best for your building and the people that live in them. If you have any questions for me or my colleagues, please feel free to type them in the Zoom chat and we will address them at the end. So who are we? I wish I could actually shake all your hands, but the best I can do is a virtual one. We're Mann Engineering. We're a Toronto-based engineering firm that consults and specializes in innovative HVAC solutions. We are a strong firm that's been in business since 1988 for over 30 years, and we have faced many challenges along the way. But that never stopped us from delivering quality engineering. The past few weeks, our team of skilled engineers have had the opportunity to assist dentists across the city in reopening their practices. Their governing body, the RCDSO, or the Royal College, has provided the dentist with guidance on how to reopen, but Mann was able to stay well informed on top of their instruction to provide reassurance on their with a professional HVAC opinion. Specifically, we conducted sites that to evaluate their HVAC system, which is one that we can actually provide for apartment buildings as well. They're not that much different, but we'll get into details about that in a bit later. The possibility for a coronavirus to travel through ductwork and spread throughout a building is very real. It's not like when you cough or when someone sneezes and spreads it that way through a droplet particle, but instead it's through airborne transmission. This can be looked at like contaminated air that can recirculate or circulate around a building and therefore being able to spread even without physical distancing in place, or even with physical distancing in place, I should say. So the GTA is actually reopening slowly but surely. Our Premier Doug Ford has been directing Ontario on the path for reopening for some time now, but somehow we still, as a province, never seem to get enough notice for it anyway. Nevertheless, it's time to act now, and let's get into it. As you all probably know, most residential building common areas are closed or under strict rule because of physical and social distancing measures. These areas of concern are typical amenity areas such as gyms, lobbies, laundry rooms, party rooms, libraries, elevators, hot tubs, and spas. These are all areas of risk since they are difficult to enforce physical distancing measures. The air we breathe is an important step in improving the shared space environment. We all know that it is the responsibility of building management to ensure that residents feel safe in the place that they call home. In hopefully the nearby future, though, when we've surpassed the struggles of COVID-19, where physical and social distancing are not the only general preventatives for this virus pandemic, we want to ensure you that the solutions we provide you are an opportunity for you to invest in your building, and that are not just a temporary sunk cost or a temporary solution. The solutions I will explain today will address the needs of future airborne contaminants and help prevent the spread of future viruses, pollutants, and other world economy halting problems. Many of these solutions will be AGI eligible since they are capital expense and will last more than 5 years and are not part of an ongoing maintenance. Therefore, us at Mann can provide repositioning of your building to increase its property and brand value while also keeping your tenants safe. It really does feel like a no-brainer. But what exactly is HVAC and what does it do? And how does it work in your building? Just in case people that are listening aren't aware of what's going on in regards to their apartment systems, I'll just give a little brief explanation. First and foremost, HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. This system provides heating and cooling to nearly all areas of a multi-building residence. The main functions of an HVAC system are interrelated, especially when providing acceptable indoor air quality and thermal comfort. Your heating and air conditioning system is often one of the most complicated and extensive systems in your building space. And when it stops, you'll definitely notice when it stops working. There are lots of parts of the HVAC system that are involved. There are boiler plants that provide hot water, cooling towers that provide chilled water, and apartment buildings, even fan coil units that direct air directly into the unit itself by blowing from the cold or chilled or the hot or the chilled water directly through a fan and to warm the unit right away. These components perform together to give that sweet, sweet air-conditioned air the minute you walk into your apartment unit on a hot day. Or it's that warm, welcoming air that thaws your morning coffee out when you walk into the office on a cold winter morning. It's that comfortable humidity that stops you from sweating, and it's that just the right amount of moisture so you don't feel like you're in the desert. Us humans are very picky on how we want our temperature conditions, and it all happens in the ductwork behind the scenes. So what are the limitations to these HVAC systems? Are they are they different or anything wrong with them? Well, not really. They're actually pretty down to an art at this point. We all have traditional systems that don't need a lot of major changes. However, there's an exception now due to the fact that COVID-19 is now among us. There are two critical aspects about every HVAC system out there servicing an apartment building when it comes to the new COVID-19 world. The filter selection for one, and the air changes made per hour for the other. But let's talk about the filters first. Filters present in common systems today are good at preventing pollen, dust, and smoke from entering the air inside. They create a somewhat penetrable barrier that allow for only some air particles to flow through, but block the larger ones that do not need to enter or re-enter the building. The problem is with these particles, they make up the coronavirus or any other viruses such as scale, is that they're very tiny in comparison to something like pollen. As you can see, the coronavirus particle is around 200 times smaller in size compared to the pollen particle. This means that the air your tenant breathes can actually have traveled from a COVID-positive patient's tenant's room, not to mention that they could be asymptomatic, so there will be difficulty in finding out who was sick in the building. Airborne particulate traveling through ductwork is a very possible scenario, and it must be considered. However, there's a more crucial problem here, and that is when the contaminated air could travel from or into shared spaces once it's reopened. A gym is susceptible to a high traffic influx of people, and not to mention the heavy breathing people that are working out. Heavy breathing definitely doesn't help out when it comes to preventing a spread of an airborne virus. Or what about the people that have already compromised immune systems or the existing health problems that they have? Many of these scenarios can go about, but what can be done to stop it from happening? This would be a bad recipe for the new cases in an apartment complex, which would look bad upon management and the building for future tenants. But what about these filters then, right? Should we tell you to swap them out for better ones? Well, that's an option, but let's move into the next limitation first since it ties together with air filtration. This is the lack of air changes that are going in your building. So what is an air change? What does it mean? Let me explain. Air changes occur on an hourly basis and are referred to as ACH, or air changes per hour in the HVAC world. Air changes are defined as the number of times a space can replace all the air inside that room with fresh outside air. Air changes are essential to all indoor environments, as indoor air can be feeling stuffy, stale, and gross sometimes. And to mitigate this, often a building only needs to make a few air changes an hour to make the air feeling fresh again. A cool way to better understand air changes that help me grasp the idea about how more air changes are critical to our COVID-19 now world is if I were to have a little bit of an analogy that I could use. So if I had a cup of coffee and a cup of water beside each other, and I were to take that cup of water and pour it all directly into the cup of coffee, overflowing it into the coffee and water, like mixing up and going everywhere. Well, you'd have diluted, bad tasting coffee, of course. But seriously, if I were to pour another cup of water into that same coffee cup, and then another, and another, and another, you'd have a cup of water with a color of like coffee tint. And every cup of water represents an air change being made into that room, which is represented by the coffee-filled cup. So the more water that is poured, the less contaminated air that will be present in the room. So how do air changes happen throughout a building? There are a few existing designs in HVAC systems that allow for fresh air and many air changes in a building. Let's dive into the first one. A lot of multi-resident buildings will have an HVAC unit called a make-up air unit, or an MUA, located on the top of the roof or somewhere inside the building. This unit draws in 100% fresh air into the building and exhausts the old inside air to the outside. The function is in the name of it, really. as it makes up air to the building that gets exhausted from the kitchen, bathrooms, dryer exhaust systems, and etc. They mainly target areas of high traffic where many residents will walk through on their way to their unit. These areas include lobbies, corridors, the elevators, etc. The building ventilation and the makeup air system work together to ensure that the building pressure is maintained. But outside these technical terms, an MUA really also helps getting rid of all those different smelling foods that are cooked on every single floor. What's also really cool about a makeup air unit and why I'm actually mentioning it is their ability to introduce more air changes per hour and therefore dispose of contaminated air outside the building. You can have few air changes every hour, but it wouldn't dispose a lot of contaminated air, since in reality it can't if there are few air changes per hour. But this is where we come in and adjustments can be made. By bettering the performance of your building at a feasible way, this is one of the ways that we can make your makeup air unit work better by installing something called a variable frequency drive, or a VFD. Dated makeup air units are great in their ability to still draw in fresh air to your building. However, there's always room for saving you money in the long run without spending a ton on a fixed cost in the beginning. What I mean is that the older makeup air units will have a motor that operates at a consistent speed during the times of operations, which is sometimes 24/7. VFDs are devices that are added on many types of equipment to slow the operation of a motor. With respect to an MUA, a VFD can pay itself off in just a few years. The function of this is to slow down the motor, deliver less air throughout the building. And now you might be thinking, wait, weren't you just saying you need more air in throughout the building? Well, you don't need it all the time. Definitely don't need it all day and all night long. A VFD is typically set up on a timer that can provide a percentage of the full airflow that the building requires. There are certain times of the day which require less makeup air, and there are certain times with peak demand for air. When the airflow is reduced during non-peak operating hours, there are significant gas savings. As many of your apartment buildings will have VFDs installed on various equipments, tweaks can be made to tailor to when it comes to COVID-19. Mann can consult your building and provide the necessary guidance and retrofit solution that best suits your building's capability. Specifically, we can overdrive the VFD to improve the performance of your existing equipment beyond its normal capacity at peak times of the day. This can be an easy way to allow for more air changes in your building. Another approach is one that involves an installation of a unit that can be independent or integrated into your central HVAC system of the apartment building. This solution provides flexibility as well as feasibility, as its purpose is to save energy while also bringing in fresh air, effectively producing a safe environment. This then increases the air changes and exhausts the contaminated air into shared spaces, similar to the other solutions that we talked about earlier. But these units are called heated recovery ventilation units, HRVs, or energy recovery ventilation units, ERVs, respectively. Without these units, new fresh air that is allowed through the makeup air in others and other equipment solutions will exhaust the conditioned air that you spent money on either to heat up or cool down. By integrating an HRV or an ERV, however, your building can conserve some of that conditioned air energy and transfer it to the new fresh air, like on that diagram that's on the right there. This can effectively provide fresh, but also heated or cooled air. Space heating and ventilation together can account for over half of annual energy consumption in apartment buildings. Because ventilation systems introduce unconditioned outdoor air and exhaust conditioned indoor air, there is a potential to save energy by incorporating some heat transfer between the two systems. This works during the winter when warm exhaust air preheats to the outside fresh air, and during the summertime when the cooler exhaust air pre-cools to the outside fresh air. These two types of technologies are very similar in how they perform. However, an ERV performs a little bit different as it transfers moisture between the exhaust and the supply air streams as well, where an HRV does not. This will help maintain humidity in that desired area. So the not so secret ingredient about the air is moving into the HEPA filter, right? HEPA filters are used to bring in and filter air. However, the air changes that are defined to only bring in fresh outside air. But in a space where you can't bring in fresh air because it's either too expensive or it's not possible, what can you do? You can bring in something called an effective air change into a room, which involves filtered, purified air, like through using a HEPA filter. This is accomplished using a standalone air purifier. However, it might be a little different because you can introduce many air changes for your parents to help them sleep at night without congestion, but in reality, it's for better things than that. Traditional systems that are currently in many apartment buildings today were never designed to capture small, super small, I'm talking real small, particles, as we talked about earlier. However, HEPA filters are a very efficient capture of these particles as they are as small as 0.3 microns. To put this into perspective, this is a picture on the bottom here of a human hair on the left, in comparison to something the size of the coronavirus on the very right. As you can tell, it's a very big difference. But how do these work? You know, how does a traditional filter differ from something like a HEPA filter? Well, a traditional filter, or a HEPA filter, I should say, is much more dense than it is as it is constructed from plastic fibers arranged in a mat of randomly placed fibers. The particles that enter the filter are trapped by sticking to a fiber through a three-way process of diffusion, interception, or impaction. Basically, it's just like catching and trapping a particle until the filter's disposal. A retrofit solution of installing a HEPA filter inside HVAC equipment may be appropriate for your building, and sometimes it can also be counterproductive. A high-efficiency filter, like a HEPA filter, may have an initial pressure drop or be loaded with dust and particles very quickly, thus making you have to change the filter very frequently. It can also cause more air to bypass the system and the filter if it's not properly installed and well sealed. Depending on the design of your system, a high pressure drop filter can also diminish the amount of air supplied to your environment, making the filter less effective. But most importantly, in many residential and some light commercial systems, the fan in the system does not run very often, and the efficiency of the filter may not be as important as it could be. But this is where Mann can make it our mission to ensure proper airflow into your building. The pros of a HEPA filter is that it could prevent the spread of airborne contaminants in your building without making major changes to your building's existing design. With the increase in maintenance costs, this may not be the most effective way to integrate HEPA filters into a multi-resident building. However, a more effective way is to integrate HEPA filters into a desired shared space, specifically using a standalone air purifier installed with HEPA filters. Going back to my example about the dentist, Mann prepared engineering reports and recommendations on how to purchase and properly set up a standalone HEPA filter. Our solution provided the dentist with clean, purified air within minutes. This solution is not so different to how a shared space can tackle the coronavirus right from the air we breathe in apartment buildings today. But, you know, what are these air purifiers and how do they work? Can they really make a difference in your building? Absolutely. And our team at Mann can consult you along the way. With the effectiveness of a HEPA filter combined with many air changes that can be all done without modification to your building's HVAC, this solution really is the easiest way to transition into a COVID-free and safe environment. Similar to building filtration, there isn't direct clinical evidence of the benefit of a portable air purifier at this time for reducing infectious disease risk, but there is some benefit and reasonably inferred for an appropriately sized and maintained and operated portable HEPA filter. As with building filtration, the details are important, so that the efficiency and the airflow rate of the air and the sizing and the placement of where you're going to put the unit and the maintenance and the filter changes, all that sort of stuff is appropriate to consider. And it's only the likely way to have effective air changes an hour, also in conjunction with other measures such as physical and social distancing. Many products are out there that are available in the end of the day that all serve the same purpose, as just to purify the air. They intake the air that circulates around the room and direct it through a series of filters. By selecting a product for a specific space is where we come in and show you what you need and what's important for your building. By evaluating the building and understanding where the issues will arise, our engineers are ready to consult the problem and find the solution right for your building's needs. And we are currently working actually with manufacturers in the air purifying industry and have a great understanding of the market. There are many sectors of the economy that are shifting towards the norm of air purification as a ways to combat the struggle of reopening commercial as well as residential spaces. I cannot stress enough that the contaminants that are created through airborne transmission are able to travel great distances and pose a real threat to people's homes and where they believe they're safe. But what can Mann do? What can we do for your building? For starters, we can provide a complimentary building site visit. We can also provide an engineering audit report similar to that of the dentist, but for your building's current HVAC system evaluated with feasible recommendations to improve air changes with effective filtration. We also will provide you the opportunity to future-proof your building and ensure the safety of your residents. Because after all, we're all in this together, and physical distancing and the use of PPE can yield amazing results for avoiding contamination. But the combination of behavioral strategies with building operation changes will improve the quality of life possible for the future as well as the quality of air possible for today. Since we're all in this together and there's no one solution that will fix the world that we live in, we can start with the air that we breathe. Thank you for joining us today, and I'd like to bring in my colleague, Wesley Mann. You can contact him here as well, but to answer any of your questions, and we've actually got a couple here in the chat that we'd like to address.
Yeah, okay. Hi, guys. My name is Wesley. I'm a project engineer at Mann Engineering. Let me just look through some of the questions that we've received in the chat. So firstly, what is the cost of air purifiers versus retrofitting an existing system? So really, the quick and easy answer is it depends. But generally, your standalone air filtration HEPA filters are going to be the cheaper and simpler option, just because it doesn't involve a major retrofit of your existing system. Now, the cost of these standalone systems vary depending on the size of the space you want to serve. Like, for a gym, 1,000 square feet, you're looking at probably in the $6,000 to $7,000 range. But it really depends on your goals. For instance, how much ACH you want to achieve, firstly, and then the physical size of the dimensions of the units, as well as the quality of the units. There's medical grade and commercial grade units, and then there's your residential units, basically, and they provide a different quality of air filtration. Obviously, the commercial and medical grade air filters provide a lot better purification of the air, 99.9% plus. And another factor is the noise that the units create. Depending on which unit you choose, they have vastly different noise outputs. So that can be a concern as well. So it really depends on the goals that you have, and that's where we come in and we can help you make that decision based on your goals. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. How quickly can these solutions be implemented? And obviously, yes, this is a big concern right now with the timelines that we're getting from the government and everything. We need solutions quickly, and that's an issue that we're seeing. With the dentists that we mentioned that we've been working with, and for sure for you guys as well. Now, so what we can do at Mann is we can do a complimentary site visit within a week for sure. And then we can get right in there and tell you what you need. I'll go ahead and say it off the bat. The quickest solution, if you want to get something fast, is going to be these standalone air purifiers. Most of them are stock items, and we could help you in procuring those. The retrofits to your existing systems obviously is a bigger project, but at the same time, it has potentially a longer life. They'll be more or less permanent to your new building, and not just what could be considered a temporary fix. They actually make permanent changes to your building that will improve the quality of your building, and it's more of an investment we would consider to the building. And it's different for every client, what their expectations are, what their budget is, of course. Because some clients may prefer to go that route with retrofitting their existing systems, and some may prefer just to the quick and dirty but still effective air purifiers. Okay, third, what additional costs are involved with standalone air purifiers? So really, the nice thing about those, there's really basically no additional cost, because you just have the cost of the unit. There's really no installation. It's more or less plug and play. They kind of fit into most areas, and they just take your regular 120 volts receptacles. You just plug them in. The only other thing would be, in order to maintain the effectiveness of those units, you do have to replace the filters as per manufacturer's instructions. So that is an additional cost, but relatively minor. Relatively minor cost. So it's mainly just the cost of the units. And here's a good one. Will these systems still be useful after COVID-19? Yes, that's the question everyone's asking themselves. Like, is this going to be something that's going to be a sunk cost? Is this going to be something that we're going to spend money on, and then a few months and or maybe up to a year, when this COVID situation has died down, is this going to be something that we don't need anymore? And our philosophy here at Mann is that this is really what we're trying to future-proof your building towards any future infectious diseases like COVID-19. As these solutions are really more than just to tackle COVID-19. It really will improve your air quality in general, because these systems that we're proposing, whether it be increasing air changes or filtration, will not just filter out infectious particles like viruses or bacteria, but also your pollen, dust. It just will generally improve your air quality, and that's part of the marketability of this as an investment into your building. As people with pre-existing conditions, this might be something that they take very seriously, and that they might really benefit from or like to see in buildings, is that they take air filtration seriously. And especially, I think after this COVID-19 situation is over, I think everyone's mentalities will be permanently changed going forward. I think everyone's going to look at the world a different way, and being a building that has taken action and really been put these measures in place to ensure that their tenants are safe going forward. In the case of future diseases such as this, I think is a really important thing. So I think we'll probably stop it there. If you guys have any further questions, or if you're interested in us doing a complimentary site visit, you can contact me. My name's up there, or yeah, just send me an email, text, call me, whatever you want to do. So thank you guys for listening.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you guys joining in today, and we hope you enjoyed it.